Hello everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman and this is your look at the astrology for August 25th through 31st, 2025. So it's eclipse season, and eclipse season is something that happens every 6 months, so just like clockwork. And eclipses are some of the most important astrology that we should be paying attention to, because astrology is time. I know you hear me say that a lot. Astrology is time. And eclipses help to open new spaces of time. It's kind of not, we don't always think of time as having a shape or having a space. Time fills space. So we have an eclipse, we have a lunar eclipse on September 7th, we have a solar eclipse on September 21st. I realize it's not September yet, but we are feeling this, and I wanted to talk specifically about eclipse season. And I know that I'm doing this late because I had to move my things from New Jersey, right next to New York City, all the way back to Maryland. But I will get to that in a moment. Just sort of give you some real world astrology. But for those that don't know who I am, my name is Katie Sweetman. I'm an astrologer and psychic medium located here in the rolling hills of Central Maryland. And every week we gather live to look at the astrology. You hear me say it every week. The astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. So for example, like the part that is me, the part that is the 50% that is me. So I, as an astrologer, I don't, I look at the astrology. Of course, I look at the astrology. We do this every week, but I don't get too in my head about my own personal astrology. Having said that, I do know a fair bit of astrology by now, and I know how eclipses work. And, I was looking at my astrology for 2025 and even 2024 and be like, because for me, eclipses in Virgo Pisces, I have a lot of planets in the mutable signs, Sag, rising Gemini moon, planets in Sag, planets in Virgo, nodes in Virgo Pisces, Saturn and gosh, Virgo. And I was like, this is going to be some interesting eclipse season. So for me as an astrologer, there's eclipses, there's Saturn, of course, there's the other things, which just sort of make things a little bit more concise. And I know that whenever we have eclipses, whenever we have Saturn change signs, there's transition points. So I've sort of been circling September 2025 in my head. I'm like, okay, I have been, quote unquote, temporarily living in Maryland for the last 15 months. But I knew that there was going to be transition points, and that September was a time to look at. So let's rewind for a second. Again, it's real world astrology. I was in Greece earlier this month. I was meditating, and I just hear the words very clearly. Your time in New York is over. Your life is going to change, and you're going to move. Now, for me, I hear things. It's one of the ways in which I hear things, I download things, I know things, I smell things, I can taste things. So that didn't sort of strike me as odd, but I sort of, take anything that I receive and I put it in the box. And I'm like, okay, I'll come back to this later. And for me, even though I'm not originally from New York City, it's my home. That's where I spent 20 years of my life and most of my adult life too. So I come back from Greece and I come back to the notification on my storage unit that they are raising the rent to almost $1,000. Yes, $1,000, which is obscene. And it's about a 40% increase. I'll sort of keep this concise, but that's the eclipses. And so the eclipses were saying, okay, this is going to be my manifestation of the eclipses. So I had to go up to New York this weekend. I had to get all my stuff this morning. I did not personally gather it up, but I had to facilitate it, and people moved it to Maryland. So check, that is done. But this is how astrology can predictably, I put predictably in quotes because in reality we can't truly predict everything, how astrology really shows us time and what time is for our lives, and how perhaps even this eclipse season might mark the ending or even the beginning of a new chapter. So just a check-in. I realize, I'm doing this on Facebook Live. We are also on Spotify. We're also on YouTube. What has this eclipse season, starting to bring up for you? Do you have major placements in Virgo, Pisces, perhaps even major placements in Gemini and Sagittarius as well? Is there some sort of transition that's happening for you? If you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Katie, fine. But this eclipse, the eclipse that we'll have next week on September 7th, even the eclipse that we'll have on September 21st, they are connected to two other eclipses that we already had. This would be a lunar eclipse on a lunar eclipse on March 16th, March 14th earlier this year, and a lunar eclipse on September 17th of 2024. And so here we are, like the story is beginning to come to a head. That's how time, we don't always know what the story is when the eclipses start between two different signs of the zodiac. So, for me and Virgo, apart from the shifts in my personal life, which I was just sharing, Virgo, Pisces, I love all the zodiac signs, but Virgo and Pisces, Virgo is earth, Pisces is heaven. So these are signs that really bridge the divide, or perhaps even the connection between heaven and earth. Pisces in particular, because it's ruled by Jupiter, it needs purpose, it needs meaning. And Virgo, it doesn't mean that Virgo doesn't have meaning and purpose. Virgo is more practically minded, more grounded, in the sense that it wants to take the meaning and purpose of Pisces and put it into the day-to-day life, rituals, mindfulness, really showing up on a day-to-day level, cleaning, organizing, and vice versa. We can really take commitments in Virgo. We can honor our duties and responsibilities for something greater, Pisces. And Pisces, as the last sign of the zodiac, really takes us out of the zodiac and prepares us for a new cycle, a new life. But that new life always starts when the sun goes back into Aries. So the zodiac isn't just a calendar. It's not just the year. It's something that we can experience in a day, a week, a month, and even a lifetime. There's a lot of really powerful, rich, and in reality overlooked wisdom and knowledge that's within the zodiac. So my point is that it's eclipse season. And this is a time where we can even look back at June. June was a time that was sort of setting things up for this eclipse season. And really also to understand that transitions are just a natural part of life. We just go with the flow, for example. That's a very Piscean statement, of course. So again, begin to look what is beginning to enter, or perhaps even to leave the space of your life. And I talked about this last week, how the new moon that we had just 2 days ago, August 23rd, was really one to watch, because it wasn't an eclipse, but the new moon, did I say Pisces? I'm saying Virgo. The Virgo new moon on August 23rd was almost exactly square Uranus and Gemini. So this is just going to be a very interesting 4-week period. I find it, just on a personal level, I find it interesting because I moved to New York when Uranus was in Pisces. That was way back when. And Uranus is now in Gemini. And if, the voices in my head, so to speak, are true, then perhaps this is the end of my time in New York. So eclipse season. I should also mention that I am doing I'm doing something a little bit differently this eclipse season. I typically do a webinar. I wanted to shake things up. I want to try something new. I love working with people one-on-one. I love working with people in a group environment. And I was saying, perhaps, for example, earlier about space and how I really want to create space for us to navigate this eclipse season. It's not to manifest, it's not to use the energy of the eclipses, it's to really enter into a sacred space, and one that can enter even into the sacred space of our own personal astrology. So this is something that's going to be very intimate, very personal. It's meant to be guided to get us out of the mental mind. That's the thing about astrology. As much as I love nerding out on details in astrology, we are often too in the head. And I'm saying this with, Virgo season, because Virgo is a very analytical sign, but we need to get back to the heart. We need to get back to our spirit, and that's perhaps even the Pisces side of the zodiac. So I'm going to be hosting a 3-hour workshop. This is going to be on September 6th, so the day before the lunar eclipse. And again, it is to create curated sacred space so that we can really enter into the eclipse season in a different position of consciousness, for example. So you can sign up in the show notes. You can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. You can learn about this workshop. It's, again, wanting to facilitate space for people. And if it's right for you, for example, I already have some people that have signed up, really excited about that. And it is recorded for replay. You can do it offline, but you'd have to promise me that you sort of set that sacred time. You don't just sort of listen to it in the background as you do clean the floors or something. That's very Virgo, but to really be present in what is being created. So go to my website, empoweringastrology.com, to learn more about my eclipse workshop. This will be again September 6th, day before lunar eclipse. So just a week and a half from now, if I'm doing my math right, 2 weeks from now. Let's go through the astrology this week. Like I said, I've been back and forth. I had to drive to New York, New Jersey yesterday. I had to drive back from New York, New Jersey today. So maybe it's going to be a little bit of a shorter week recording. So let's look at each of the 12 zodiac signs, starting with Aries. Aries. So Mars is your planet. Mars, it's still in Libra. So the energy of, I said this last week, is relevant. The energy of your sign is pulling over to your relationship sign of Libra. And so this is a time where Aries, it's about the other people in your life. And that is a broad statement because perhaps you have intimate relationships or you have relationships that are a little bit more surface, but that's where the focus is at the moment. So I was at a wedding this weekend and the groom is an Aries. So interesting, relationships are a focus and a priority at the moment. And Mars is always, even though Mars is your sign or your planet, Mars is always about the immediate priorities. So the immediate priority up until September 22nd, that's when Mars goes into Scorpio, will be relationships. And even though it's not eclipse season with eclipses in Aries and Libra like we had 2023 and 4 and into 5, it is, I think there are some echoes perhaps to those eclipses that you had back in those days. So back in those years. So I would look, what was going on in that time about relationships and how it may perhaps something from the past 2 years is coming up right now. Eclipse season for you, Aries, it's a very interesting time to be in Aries because you have one hand, you have Saturn. Right now it's like poised to leave Aries, but it's been in Aries since since May 24th. And then next week, September 1st, this is actually really big news, Saturn goes back in Pisces. For you, Aries, again, is relationships at the moment, but sort of this broader arc of time that you're in where it's about your spirituality. It's about cultivating something deep within. Faith, truth, meaning, but it's also about letting things go. I know that that's a thing to say, and sometimes people don't like to hear about like letting things go, but you will have a lunar eclipse in something called your 12th, and that's a space that reminds us that everything has a cycle. Everything has a time. And sometimes that cycle comes to a completion. So when something leaves your life, it is so that something new can come into your life, and that is the energy of Aries. Taurus. So Venus is your planet. So as I speak, this is the 25th of August, Venus has gone into Leo. And Leo is a fire sign. It is what's called your fourth sign of home and family and roots and foundations. On one hand, you get sort of that energizing energy of Venus now in Leo. On the other hand, it's a time to slow down, to put down roots, to focus on the home and family. Venus will be in Leo. Let's see. Venus goes into Virgo on the 19th of September. So really it's just about 3 weeks ish about Venus being in Leo. But it could be a time when you really need to focus on your home environment, your living situation, a family member, or maybe it's just to really feel a sense of home and connection. We also have eclipse season, and eclipse season for you. It is focused on parts of your astrology that are more about broader topics. So, for example, Virgo for you is something called your 11th sign. Wait, I'm not doing that right. Virgo is something called your 5th sign, so I got flipped. And then we have a Pisces eclipse on September 7th, and that's in your 11th. And so it's about community. On one hand, this could be a time to really think about the world, your role in the world, your place in the world, the people that you want to connect with, your allies, your social circle, people coming in and out of your life, getting involved in group situations. On another hand, there's a bigger theme about identity. Who are you? What is it that is uniquely you, or even uniquely yours? And how do you share the best of yourself with the world? Whatever is going on with these eclipses, these are pulling at threads that take us back to, say, March 2025 and even September of 2024. So see if that pings anything that's going on right now, because that is part of the story that's really brewing and percolating as we go into September. Gemini. So Mercury is your planet, and Mercury is winding its time. I think it's still in Leo. Let's double check. Yes, it's in Leo. I'm looking at the clock. Sorry, been driving all day. Yes, Mercury's in Leo. So Mercury is in Leo, and so Leo for you is a sign where it really pairs. I think Leo and Gemini go together really well, because Gemini is about the curiosity of life, trying new things, voice, communication, and Leo is really about this creative expression. And so it may be a creative time for you, Gemini. It could be a very busy time, a lot of trips, a lot of travel, things to do, places to go, people to see. But there's always that deeper philosophical side of what is happening right now, where it's asking you questions about who you are and how you express yourself. Are people hearing you? Are you able even to express who you are? Don't be a cover artist in your own life, for example. That said, Gemini, it is eclipse season. It is a big eclipse season for you, because these eclipses are going to be in the signs of Pisces, which is your career sign, and Virgo, which is your sign of home and family. Whatever is happening is really threading over back even to September of 2024 and March of 2025. We had 2 eclipses in Virgo Pisces back then. And so what is the story that's going on in your career, your professional life, your public reputation? Because for you, Pisces, it represents the highest and the most visible part of your astrology. So not every Gemini is going to experience something around career per se. But these eclipses do talk about duties and responsibilities. Your role with power, your role in the public, your role in the world, for example. Then we have eclipses in the 4th, the sign of home and family and roots and foundations. And so Geminis, you might be seeing a change in your status, so to speak. I can think of the person whose wedding I was at, their Gemini rising. And so that talked about a change of status to, have a new title after your name. You're now married. I realize this is a little bit more of a traditional look at things, but it is a look at things. Change in the household, change in the home. It could be a move. It could be the starting of a family. It could be a need to focus on family, a need to put down roots. But to see a solar eclipse in this space, which you will have on September 21st, it says that something is shifting within the bounds of home and family. I realize it's more of a broader topic. Home and family can be both your address and the people that live in that address with you, or the people who are connected to you, through family connections, but also address in the sense of your address within yourself, the sense of interconnection and to feel that you belong someplace. So if you're Gemini right now, especially with Uranus and Gemini, it's not a quiet eclipse season. And it's really a month to watch how perhaps for some of you, not all, but for some of you, this is the start of some really big shifts in your life. Cancer. So the moon is your planet, and as I speak, the moon is in Libra, so it's going to be in Libra for about the next few days. Interesting, because with the moon in Libra, it's going to really pick up on Venus in Leo. So Libra and Leo, it takes that creative energy and it puts it towards beauty and socialization and connection and grace and charm. And so maybe that's something that you're feeling over the next few days. Libra for you, Cancer, is what's called your fourth sign. It's home, it's family, it's roots, foundation. You go through the fourth and into the fifth as you start to get towards the end of the week. It's about you, it's about your creativity, your talents, your gifts, your abilities. And you close out the week really focusing on the things that you need to do. This could be the weekend, you got projects to do, you got things to figure out, things to check off your list, or maybe it's even health and wellness in general. That said, is eclipse season. Now, these eclipses that we're having on September 7th and September 17th, September 21st, sorry, they're not, let's say, hitting on some of the things that, let's say, the eclipses that we're hitting on for you the past couple of years. Now, Cancers in general, there have been changes in the home, there have been moves, there have been changes in career over the past couple of years, but you're phasing out of that eclipse cycle. And with Virgo and Pisces being focused on, it's more about your education. It could be literally your education, you're getting a degree, or you're just wanting to educate yourself in general, or it's more philosophical about like, what do I believe in? What do I stand for? What do I think is true? Maybe it's a time to really share something, share a point of view, share something that you're writing, speaking, communicating, for example. Sometimes when we have eclipses in the third, and for you, Cancer, Virgo is something called your third sign, it's to really try to weigh your options. You need to look at, like, is it a this way or that way? Is it an up or a down? Is it a yes or a no? And the beauty of Virgo for you, and so what's called the third, is that you have lots of options. You want to try everything. You want to do everything. But Virgo is about having the discernment to make the right choices. So what I'm trying to say, Cancer, is that you go into September where you may be weighing your options. Do I go this way or do I go that way? And it's about having the wisdom to make the right decision. And maybe on some level really being true to yourself and listening to yourself and not making a choice that goes against yourself. Leo, so not your birthday season anymore, but you do now have Venus in Leo, and Venus will be in Leo, I think we said, until the 19th of August. So that's a nice little visitor. Venus, and it gives one charm and grace. It can make one feel more social, because Venus is the planet that helps us to take into account the needs of other people. Venus, when it's in your sign, is more about negotiation, meaning this is not a Venus that's a pushover. This is a Venus that wants to go after what it wants, but it can give you, kind of like some star power or some charm and some grace in the meantime. I should have said this earlier, but like Venus, when it goes into Leo, which is it's just gone into Leo today, it makes an opposition to Pluto. And there is something that's going on where you may, Cancer, you may need to really, or Leo, you may need to really look at relationships and relationship dynamics and perhaps do things differently. Keep in mind, Leo, that you have a long-term visitor in something called your relationship sign. This has been since 2023, 2024, so this is not new news. But you have Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius is your relationship sign. And over many years, yes, many years, you will do a great work. It's going to be very specific to each and every person. There is no one size fits all Pluto transit. But in general, the larger, like bigger psychic theme in your life right now is that relationships have to change. Whether that means new dynamics, new people, or really getting clear about what you want and what you need. So that might be a little bit of the pain point, or maybe not pain point, just like a little bit of tension as you start the week. We are in eclipse season. Eclipse season for you is not, let's say, as highly focused as it is for some of the other signs. But it is either about money, income, material stability, and security, or it is about something that's a little bit more on an emotional and psychic level. If it's about money, this could be a time when you are looking to, let's say, get a mortgage, or you're looking at your spending, or you really need to clean things up and put things in organize it in order. And maybe you're just sort of strategizing and thinking ahead for the future, because Virgo is your second sign of money and income. Virgo's a strategist. Virgo's a pragmatist. Virgo's like, what do I need? And how do I do the steps in order to get what I need and to create material stability and security for myself going forward. It could be about your income, increasing your income, or just sort of analyzing, the resources that you have available. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's self-worth and value, and how you take your self-worth seriously, or perhaps not even take your self-worth seriously. So if there's a dynamic already happening around relationships, and something, especially this week, is getting, coming to the forefront about a relationship dynamic that has to change, maybe with the eclipses, it's also touching on self-worth and value. But especially with that lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th, it's to really look within so that you can make the necessary transformation. Virgo. Happy birthday, Virgo. We've just started Virgo season as of, I think it was the 22nd. And then we had a very interesting Virgo New Moon on the 23rd. So it's an interesting time, maybe there's a better adjective, to be a Virgo, because you now have Uranus and Gemini, which is your career sign. And there is the beginning of a shift in your professional life that will play out in different ways throughout every Virgo, because of course there are billions of people on this planet. You are all different people. There are however many Virgos on this planet. You're not going to live the same thing. But it is for you to understand that you have this energy in a space, your 10th, your career, that will play out in a way that for some of you over the coming years, there may be a career change. There may be a need to reinvent yourself professionally, publicly, to transform your relationship with duties and responsibilities, to awaken, to Virgo typically is like, let's keep doing it this way. It's an earth sign. It needs stability. It needs pragmatism, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Uranus is not stability. It's not pragmatism. It's about you getting out of your own way. So this new moon that we had a couple days ago, and if it's your birthday on the 23rd, the 24th, 25th, even those that are the 22nd, 23rd of August as well, the coming new year is going to be a time of powerful new beginnings. Virgo, the new moon always gives you a reset, even if your birthday or even if your rising sign is not on the degree of the new moon. But it is a time of really powerful new beginnings, and September might be a very interesting month for you. You have an eclipse, a lunar eclipse on September 7th, so my September 7th, 6th, 8th, plus or minus babies It's going to be a powerful birthday because you have a lunar eclipse on your birthday. And when we have eclipse energy on our birthday, it just means change in some domain, in some way, what we have to see. Then we have the solar eclipse on the 21st, and so that's a more of a powerful new beginning that really will take you over the next 6 to 12 months. New beginnings in all things Virgo, new beginnings in your life. I'm just playing with the levels. But it's something for you to really watch and to see how, maybe the systems that you have taken for granted, or maybe the organization that you have really set up in your life, maybe it's no longer working. Maybe it needs to expand. Maybe it needs to reinvent. But again, September is going to be a very interesting month. Libra. So Venus is your planet, and Venus has just gone into Leo. So for the next 3 weeks, the energy of your sign pulls over to Leo. And so for Libra and Leo, it's actually a really nice combination. Libra is a lot of things. It could be your rising sign, it could be your sun sign, but it is ruled by Venus, and Venus is typically beauty, charm, grace. Venus helps us to take more account of the needs of other people. These are, this is why people with strong Venus, they are really drawn to negotiation and helping people and really being able to navigate different social dynamics as well. So with Venus and Leo, it gives you a lot of creative energy. There's a need to express yourself, again, with that charm and grace. Leo for you is something called your 11th sign. So for you, Leo, it really is bringing you towards the end of your personal calendar. And so when you get to Leo season, I realize we're not in Leo season, but Venus is there right now. You're starting to get to the end of something. Not quite to the end, but it's a time to look outward, to look towards the future, to hope and dream, and to sort of take stock on everything that's around you. It's also a space and a sign that talks about your relationships on a group level, your social circle, your sense of community, your sense of belonging. And that can bring up a lot of philosophical questions like, who are my friends? Where do I belong? Do I have allies in my life? Venus on the 19th will go into Virgo. It is Virgo season. Virgo season is the season that comes right before your own season. So Virgo represents the end in your own personal astrology. Between the Virgo New Moon that we had on August 23rd, between the Virgo solar eclipse that we will have on September 21st, there's something that's going on in your life that talks about transition and endings. I know that that's sort of a big thing to say. Endings come in a lot of different forms. Endings are a natural part of life. We have the end of the day, for example, and with the end of the day, we can have the beginning with the sunrise. So with the sun in Virgo, it's time to reflect, to go within, to look back, to sort through the things that you've been carrying, whether it's last year, whether it's longer. For some Libras, it's about your spirituality. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? And how do you feel that on a deep and inner level? For some Virgos, it's a need to find meaning and purpose in their lives. And so for some Libras, it is a quiet time. It's not a time for a lot of big things to be happening. It could be a need to sort of yourself as you prepare for your own season. And then when when Venus goes into Virgo on September 19th, it will bring you into this time even more. So very practical advice, give this time space. Find retreat in your life. Spend some time alone, reflect, meditate, feel like you're sort of clearing out and releasing, and even with the even with the Pisces full moon lunar eclipse on September 7th, it could be a time to really clean your space around you, for example, because it's a time of preparing yourself. And I realize it's a little bit of a broad statement, but sort of sit with that. What does it mean to prepare yourself? prepare yourself for your birthday, to prepare yourself for a new beginning, to prepare yourself for a new stage of life? And if that is the case, what do you need to do in order to prepare yourself? Scorpio. Scorpio. So Mars is your planet, and Mars is in Libra, so it's bringing you to the end of your personal calendar. It's been in Libra since August 6th, and so from August 6th to September 22nd, this is your designated time to go within. When Mars is in Libra, which is kind of ironic because Libra is more a sign that's about relationship, but for you, Libra represents the most sacred, the most quiet, the most time to spend alone, to go on retreat, to not go fast, to really slow down, to really take stock and take inventory, to meditate, and to begin to tap into the deepest and perhaps even the most sacred parts of yourself. Mars only goes to this part of your astrology every 2 years. So Mars is a cycle of 2 years. But when Mars goes into Scorpio on the 22nd, it symbolically represents a new chapter, a new setting and stage in your life. So I kind of said this to Libra, so I'm going to steal something that I said to Libra because it actually applies to you as well. If you are on the precipice of something, whether it is a quiet new beginning, whether it is a new season in your life, because this, it's going to be autumn in the northern hemisphere or spring in the southern hemisphere, what do you need to do to prepare yourself? Mars is more about engagement and taking action, but when it's in the 12th, the action is very subtle, it's quiet, and it's spiritual. So to ask the question again, Scorpio, what do you need to do to prepare yourself? The eclipse season is not touching upon big themes like perhaps it is for the other signs. For you, it's about your community, the people that are around you, themes around friendships and connections. But it's also about you and you expressing yourself and taking your talents and gifts and abilities seriously. So if this eclipse season is really opening up new horizon, new friendships, new futures, what do you need to do to prepare yourself? Sagittarius. So Jupiter is your planet. And so Jupiter, it's going to be hanging out in Cancer for a year. So from June of 2025 until June or July of 2026. Every year, it's like you get a different sign to put your energies into. Jupiter has a 12-year cycle, for example. There are 12 signs in the zodiac. And for you, Cancer, on one hand, really brings up themes about family and connection and sort of the intimacy of connection, because connection on a social level can be pretty surface. But Cancer, for you, as what's called your 8th sign, takes it deeper. It is to allow people to come into deep and intimate spaces within you. It's to give that trust, to have that connection with people. For some Sagittarius or Sagittarius risings, it is for you to have the courage to, and because Jupiter can give us confidence, it can give us courage, but it is to have the courage and confidence to go even into these very intimate and vulnerable spaces within yourself. This could be a time that's about legacies in the past. It could be inheritances on all levels of what that word means. That said, it is a big time to be a Sagittarius or Sagittarius rising. We have eclipse season right now, and we will have a lunar eclipse on September 7th. We'll have a solar eclipse on September 21st. And this is, on one hand, the solar eclipse on September 21st. It's your public life, your public reputation. It is a title after your name. It says that over the next 6 to 12 months, there are powerful new beginnings in your career, public life, professional life, for example. It is a dynamic time for you, and I know you've had some dynamic times over the last couple of years, but it really takes it to a new setting and stage of your life. You have a lunar eclipse on September 7th in your sign of home and family. Lunar eclipses have a little bit more immediacy. An energy of being charged to them. You had a lunar eclipse in this space back on September 17th of 2024. But the standard fare when there's an eclipse in the sign of home and family is that there's a change in the household. Somebody moves in, somebody moves out, somebody moves. You buy a house, you rent an apartment, you move to a new city, you need to focus on your home environment. A family member needs your attention. Or it could be more emotional, more about emotional security and stability, and really to find your inner anchor. But I think between Jupiter and Cancer and this eclipse in Pisces, it's a bit of an emotional time for you, an emotional week, even next week, and to really sit with the emotions that are coming up, even if they feel old or from the past, because the eclipses are also trying to clear space for new beginnings in your life. Capricorn. Capricorn. So Saturn is your planet, and as I speak, Saturn is at 0 degrees of Aries. So what happened was on March 24th, Saturn went into Aries, pulling the energy of your life into a new sign. And Aries is about new beginnings. It's the energy of spring. I realize that's, even if you're in the southern hemisphere, sort of the archetype of Aries is spring. It's new beginnings. It's the green shoots. It's the rebirth of life. And then Saturn turned retrograde on July 13th. So there's something about July in your life. And then Saturn is going to go back into Pisces on September 1st. When it goes back into Pisces, and we'll talk about this next week, it is a time to wrap up an old chapter. Pisces is a very different sign than Aries. Pisces is about new beginnings. Sorry, Pisces is about endings. Aries is about new beginning. Pisces, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's intuitive, it needs to go within. And it's to harken back, so to speak, to a space that you spent a lot of time in from March of 2023 all the way to May of 2025. For Capricorn, this was a time to really focus on your education, to take classes, to learn, to be curious, to become like an authority, to really prioritize, because Saturn's always about priority, learning, and new perspectives and new points of view. If it's not learning, then maybe you started a manuscript, maybe you're writing something, maybe it's a little bit more philosophical about taking your voice seriously. But for you, the past few months, since the end of May, have been trying to set up a new stage and chapter of your life, one where the priority going into the beginning of 2028, yes, will be about home and family. That said, this eclipse season, it doesn't hit upon some of the points strongly like it is with some of the other signs. It is an echo, I think, on some level of the eclipses that we're having in Aries and Libra 2023-4 and into the beginning of 2025. Mars is in Libra right now. Libra is your career signs, your public life, public reputation. Having Mars there is really trying to boost your career or really give you the drive to take the reins with your duties and responsibilities, your sense of ambition, and your career or your public life is really sort of your short-term priority into September 22nd. But Mars is echoing the solar eclipse that you had in Aries back on March 29th, and even the solar eclipse that we had in Aries way back on April 8th of 2024. Changes in the home, changes in the household, people move in, people move out, it's a new season and chapter. And so maybe with Saturn going back into Pisces, something needs to be sort of re-looked at, wrapped up, so that you can really truly prepare yourself for the next phase and chapter of your life. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet, and as I say this, Saturn is at 0 degrees of Aries. It is poised to return back to Pisces. This will be 59 degrees of Pisces next week, September 1st. For you, your chart is ruled by Saturn. So Saturn rules you. Saturn is like the planet that has the keys to your life. And when it changes signs, which it will back on September 1st. It will go back to Pisces. It's a shift in the energy. It's a shift in the focus. On one hand, you had June, July, and August to really start to put some things on your radar. Aries for you is what's called your third sign. It's a very busy place for Saturn to be, and perhaps on some level the past few months there has been busyness. So there's things that you needed to do. Maybe education's been a focus. Maybe writing, speaking, communicating has been a focus. Maybe travel has been a focus for some, depending on who you are. So take note, just observe, journal, like where have you felt a shift of the energies? June and July and August. So when Saturn goes back into Pisces, it pulls you from a fire sign, new beginnings, taking action, Aries, back to Pisces, water, feeling, intuition, endings, and sort of this need to prepare yourself for whatever this new phase and chapter of your life is. For you, Pisces is something called your second sign of money, income, material stability, and security. It's things that we were really talking about over and over again in 2023 and 2024. What has been the story? Have you really worked hard on finances? Do you have a budget? Do you make more money now? Do you take your material stability, with more maturity? Because wherever Saturn is, even though Saturn rules you, it's your priority. It's your long-term priority. And Saturn is in a zodiac sign from 2 to 3 years at each time. So the long-term priority, 2023, 2024, into 2025, beginning of 6, has and will continue to be money, income, material stability, and security. If it's not the material side of that, then it's also value and worth. So with Saturn back in Pisces starting next week, it's a time to wrap up a story. This is something that you won't, Saturn doesn't go back to Aries until February 13th. It is to wrap up a story. It is to see things from a different perspective. It is to sort of stand in the threshold between the new beginnings that you have been seeing over the past couple of months and sort of the things that you also know that you need to go back and return to. These eclipses that we are having in September, they're not, let's say, hitting upon big parts of your astrology, but they are getting back into those themes of money, income, material stability, and security. With the solar eclipse and even the new moon that we just had in Virgo, Virgo for you is your sign of legacies, inheritances, the things that you hold on to, the things that maybe are, need to look at. What is the value of still holding on to this? Whether this is material, whether this is emotional and psychic, for example. The 8th in Virgo season represents your time in what's called the 8th, the 8th, what I call the 8th room, is also a season to bring up themes about vulnerability, trust, power, control. And so deep emotions may be coming up over the next few weeks if they haven't already. Maybe you're thinking of the past and legacies. Maybe you're thinking of the future and legacies, or maybe this time is more emotional and psychological. You really need to sort of sit with yourself, because the real work of the 8th is the time where we can see ourselves and to make a change and to navigate things that we don't typically navigate. And that's where the alchemy happens. So this is a time to really allow some sort of inner emotional and spiritual alchemy to happen, because that is preparing you for the next stage and chapter of your life. Pisces, last but not least, Pisces. So Jupiter is your planet. And so since June 9th, Jupiter has been in Cancer. We have Cancer, which is a water sign. And we also have Pisces, which is a water sign. So we get that double dose of water. And this is going to take us into next June, July of 2026. So where are you feeling this water energy, Pisces? I know we always think of water as emotion and feeling, and of course it is, but Pisces is also the sign as the last sign, the zodiac, where the water is the water of transition. Pisces is not the water of Cancer. Cancer is my feelings, my emotions, my wants. But with Pisces, it's the empathy, it's the intuition, but the water becomes the cosmic water. It's not the water, it's not the ocean of Cancer, it is the cosmic ocean of Pisces. So on one hand, it is very much a time that's about you, your wants, your needs, your emotions. But always, because you're Pisces rising or even Pisces sun, it's a time that's really opening up these sort of bigger questions. Why am I here? What is the meaning and purpose of my life? And I realize these are questions that are not concrete. Like, you're the only person that can answer that question. But you're a Pisces or a Pisces rising. This is a life on some level to work to try to answer those questions. It is a dynamic time to be a Pisces. We have a solar eclipse or we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th. We have a solar eclipse in Virgo on September 21st. Even though we've had eclipses in Virgo and Pisces since last September of 2024, this is the first time where the eclipses are back to back. I mean, they're in exactly the signs opposite. Dynamic means different things to different Pisces risings, but it does mean that on some level things are happening in your life. It could be transitions, it could be milestones, it could be achievements, it could be something that you've really worked hard to achieve. It could be something becoming real and concrete. Saturn will go back into Pisces, and I know you're not done on September 1st, so we'll talk about this next week. And it's on some level, I think, with Saturn to go back in Pisces, to go back into that space where you really needed to stand on your own 2 feet. You really needed to make yourself a priority. Even though Pisces, just as a sign, puts everybody else first, Saturn, since 2023, was saying, Pisces, you need to make yourself a priority. It's your duties and responsibilities, nobody else's duties and responsibilities. But the past few months, since the end of May, have really been trying to give you glimpses and insights of a new chapter and phase in your life. And one of those chapters has been about money and income, and perhaps even about self-worth and value. This new moon that we had on August 23rd was a big one. It activated the energies of Uranus and Gemini, which is really about your home, your family, your inner roots and stability. Something is shifting and shaking. It might not be obvious. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Even if it's internal, it's happening. It's an energy. But Uranus in general, especially, is like a big part of these eclipses. Uranus isn't sentimental. All it knows is that you're stuck. Maybe you aren't stuck, but if you are in your own way, if you need a change, you need a reinvention, a lot of things are going to shift and move around that over the next 4 weeks. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology this week. A little late, but like I said, I was traveling back and forth between New York, New Jersey, and Maryland. And yes, so it's eclipse season. Start to take notes what's going on, or you can join me one-on-one group environment on September 6th for a very special eclipse workshop. This is to really bring us into the sacred space within, the space that we are working in as a group, but even the sacred space that exists within our astrology. So all the details are on my website, empoweringastrology.com. It will be 3 hours, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern. I realize that doesn't work for all time zones, but it will be recorded. You can just do the recording, but I sort of say this, really take the time to create space, even if you're doing the recording. So go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. You can book a consultation with me. You can sign up for my newsletter. And I will see you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.